the likelihood that HR would, blackball this person if they were interviewed is not high.
Okay.
Because they would just be opening themselves up for a lawsuit, particularly when this person already said they filed multiple complaints. It sounds like they've chosen not to go down that path. If HR kind of poked the bear, I think they could have a lawsuit on their hands. This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of this show is one singular thing, and that is to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. So today's show is one of our Dear Workplace Therapist shows where I field, and we field, your questions to really get a sense of what's going on and some of the challenges you've got. And so the way that we do these shows is normally I have my producer, Whitney, on the show today. Today, though, is a little different. I have got my creative director and my wonderful wife, Emily, on the show today.
Here I am.
Here you are.
Mm-hmm.
You said you were feeling nervous.
A little bit. This is
You're still a little
intimidating.
nervous?
I always thought being on the other side, I thought, it'd be so fun to be in that chair.
Now you're in the chair.
And now I'm in the chair, and it's things like my earbuds pop out.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before the show, and you're like, no, they're good. They're in, and then pop.
There it goes.
This is what happens.
It's fine.
It's fine.
You just roll with it. You keep going, and it makes it awesome. So it's good.
And then right before the show, you went, ma. You did the theater thing.
Right, because now I'm ready.
Now you're ready.
I am ready. So
now you're ready.
I'm prepared. We have some great questions today.
Isaac just said you have to get close to the mic.
Oh, I will do it.
Yeah. Great questions?
We do. We have some great questions that...
Now, and the way we do these shows is I have not seen these questions.
I know.
We like to do them nice and blind. So I have not looked at them, thought about my answers. It's all going to happen for all of us for the first time.
So I did edit some just for length. But so if the person who wrote them is listening and it doesn't sound exactly like your question, it was slightly edited. But just know. Here we go.
Some of them are long.
Workplace Therapist is on it.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready for the first one.
All right. Dear Workplace Therapist, I have 25 years work experience in the medical industry and was employed by a particular company we'll call ABC Co. for the last 7 years. I left ABC Co. recently after the hostile work environment became too much to bear. I had filed several complaints with HR over a year that had been ignored and finally left when I could take it no more. I had no job to go to. I just needed out. Now I'm applying for jobs and keep getting asked for references at ABC Co. How do I handle this? The HR department at ABC Co. has made it clear that they have no interest in assisting me, and I fear they will sabotage my application process. Your direction is appreciated. Signed, Seeking Recommendations.
Okay. Well, I'm going to look at this optimistically and say, gosh, there had to have been somebody at ABC Co. that you liked, that you got along with.
After 7
years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were really unhappy for the full 7 years, you wouldn't have been there 7 years.
Right.
And if everyone didn't like you and you didn't like everyone else, you're not going to stay there 7 years. So there had to be somebody. So I would look at that. I would look at someone who, ideally, they were in a leadership role, or look at clients and customers too. I don't know exactly what their role was, but maybe they have clients or customers that can add reference or referral.
But it can't be, say, your best friend, Debbie, at ABC Co.
Maybe. I mean, if they didn't specify as to exactly what kind of who they wanted the recommendation to come from, you could do that.
Is it common that a company that you're interviewing with, are they going to say, no, it needs to come from the HR department or?
No, I will say that it is also fairly common that, this person's fear is not likely to happen because most in larger professional companies, HR will have a policy around how they handle recommendations. And in many cases, if it's a really big corporation, they've got kind of a blanket statement. Like, all we're going to say is this person worked here from this point to this point.
Right.
Because they don't want to be sued for or have someone say, you didn't give me a good recommendation, so I didn't get the job. It's your fault. I'm now suing you for what I would have earned. So they'll have policies. So the likelihood that HR would, blackball this person if they were interviewed is not high.
Okay.
Because they would just be opening themselves up for a lawsuit, particularly when this person already said they filed multiple complaints. It sounds like they've chosen not to go down that path. If HR kind of poked the bear, I think they could have a lawsuit on their hands, which is HR's job. It's to remind everybody, HR's job is not to look out for the little guy. HR's job is to protect the company.
Right.
They are a risk management function. That is first and foremost.
So for your reader or your person here, your writer, should they divulge that information to the person they're now hiring with? Hey, I had an HR dispute with my last company. Okay. They don't do that proactively?
No.
Okay.
No, you don't. You don't do that. Here's why. So it's just like dating. It's just like that analogy, using that relationship. And so when you're dating a prospective employer, they're wondering, well, how did you treat your last relationship? And if you come across as crazy town, they're like, yeah, no, thank you. Like, we don't need all that drama.
Right.
Because they're listening for that. They're like, we don't need somebody who's going to bring drama to the workplace every day.
Right.
And if you're like, well, yeah, I did file, complaints about every other week with HR because I didn't like the environment, they're going to think, yeah, I don't think we want that.
Right.
So it should always be, even if you had a bad situation, you should always kind of talk about it in a positive way. And you've got to look at it that way. I learned a lot. And this person did. They learned a lot about what they didn't like. Right? It was a great experience. I learned a lot.
Okay.
Met some good people along the way. And you kind of frame it up that way.
Okay.
But I would say try and find some people, customers, clients, maybe a few people internal, and I wouldn't worry about HR throwing you under the bus. If they did that, they would just be begging for a lawsuit.
Okay. I like it.
Yep.
All right. Dear workplace therapist. All right, this is a little bit longer. Here we go. I've been with my company for over 10 years and for 3.5 at the branch I'm in. Last year, I was promoted to the head of the branch's financial department, which means I manage several small departments below me, a total of 9 people. While I was excited for this position, it came at a busy time for me as I was just getting married, and I felt like the training I received was rushed and incomplete. In addition, 4 of the people I manage were either promoted from within or hired to their positions around the same time I was, making us a very new group. I feel all of my people are very competent at the tactical parts of their jobs, but maybe not at understanding the why or the bigger picture of what they're doing. I feel like I have to spend a great deal of my daily time explaining details to them because I've sat in several of their seats before. The problem is the seat I'm in is new to me, and I feel I have a lot to learn and catch up on myself. I feel like I'm working all the time, trying to get our departments to excel, but I have been discouraged because I realize I've made several errors and I've missed some important deadlines for the company. I have fears that I am losing the trust of my superiors, but unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure because no one has talked to me or had any conversations with me about my performance in the last 8 months. I feel like I'm guessing, and I'm not sure I'm even headed in the right way or direction with my people or team. I love this company, I love this branch, and I want to do a great job for all of them. How can I? Sincerely, Managing Blindly.
That's a long one.
I know, long one. A lot going on.
That's a big one. Well, I would say that's a pretty common struggle for anybody who gets promoted up into a more leadership role.
Right.
You've got to go from working in the business to on the business. You can't be doing the day-to-day stuff, and you've got to delegate more. You've got to be editing and not authoring. So what I mean by that is whenever you're in the dynamic of an employee and a boss, or a service provider and a customer, in that dynamic, and there's always, in those 2 seats, someone always sits in the author seat and someone always sits in the editor seat.
Okay.
And it's important to know which seat to sit in. So when you're the boss, you always, as best you can, want to sit in the editor seat, not the author seat. So if you think about it this way, it's like you think about your best direct reports of all time, and they would come to you and they would say, hey, there's a problem. Here's what I think we should do about it. I'd love to get your thoughts. They're authoring and they're putting you in the editor seat. But not so great direct reports are going to say, hey, there's a problem. What do you think I should do about it? They're forcing you to author which takes more time and work. And then they get to sit in the editor's seat. So then when it doesn't work out, they can say, well, it's not my fault. She told me to do that. So I think the first step is for her to understand, make sure, I think it's a she.
Not sure.
Not sure.
Yeah. I'm guessing she got married and she was stressed about planning the wedding. So that's probably her.
Okay. Well, she or he, the first part is to make sure that you're properly editing and not authoring. Put the responsibility on employees. Because if you don't, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. You're going to be working all the time because you'll be doing their job and your job.
Sounds like she is.
But the other thing this person needs a mentor. They need a mentor. I mean, it'd be great to get a coach, and it'd be great to have someone internal that could, kind of help them. But they need to go seek out a mentor, either a mentor inside the company or a mentor outside the company.
Okay.
To just give them some good guidance and tips and tricks on how to move up into a leadership role.
Okay.
So I would say start with that. Get yourself a mentor and have a weekly call with that person.
Well, as you always say, this person is also just feels like they're guessing.
Yeah.
How should she address that part?
That's where a mentor comes in.
Okay.
A mentor comes in and says, "Yeah, that's right."
Okay. And does this person have a responsibility to sort of seek out their own their boss? What's their responsibility on that?
They can seek out their boss and ask for feedback, and say it's important to me because I want to make sure I'm meeting your expectations. So that's one thing I would add to this too is don't sit back quietly. If you view your boss or the other leaders in the company as customers, you wouldn't sit back and be like, well, I hope they're happy, but I don't know. You wouldn't do that.
Right.
You'd say, hey, it's really important to me that I'm meeting your expectations and you're pleased with my service.
Right.
Is there anything you would like to see me do more of or less of?
Okay.
So you can use the stop, start, continue question. What would you like to see me start doing? What can I continue doing that's working? Anything you want to see me stop doing? So that's, checking for that feedback is important. So maybe that is a good starting place. Start with their boss and ask them those questions, and then ask for maybe a guidance on getting a mentor.
Okay.
Would be great.
Okay.
But if I would run under the assumption that you're not going to get a lot of feedback, and you're probably not going to get them to give you a person. So you might have to go out and do it on your own.
Okay.
But that's a good starting place.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is a common problem. This happens. This is what happens when you get promoted. You end up getting promoted into something you've never done before, and you're guessing. You just need to get a little guidance and feedback.
So how long would you say you should expect to feel like that you don't exactly know what you're doing when you're promoted? How long would you give yourself
into a leadership role like this? 2 years.
2 years.
I'd say I would give it a good 2 years. You're going to feel really uncomfortable.
Really?
Because you're not really doing anything. You're no longer playing the instrument in the orchestra or the band. You're now conducting.
Okay.
And so it's a totally different experience. You actually you have less control.
Well, people do so well with feeling like they don't know what they're doing. How does someone survive that period of time?
You have to find ways to get feedback. Find another way to be able to sense, am I making progress?
Okay.
Is this working?
Okay.
And, and communication with your team is also an important part of that. Now your team, you're now leading an orchestra.
Right.
You're not playing, the violin. You're now conducting. So you've got to make sure you're keeping them connected. But the worst thing you can do is not communicate and then try and play all the instruments.
Yeah. Well,
that won't work.
And that's what she said. She's exhausted and discouraged. So that's a bad place to be.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So we are almost to break.
We are. Okay. Do I read it and then you ponder?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to cheat a little bit, folks.
All right. Give yourself some thinking time.
I know.
Okay. Well, I think you'll be able to answer this one quickly because this one's pretty blatant. Dear workplace therapist, I am the GM of a retail store. I suspect one of my managers is manipulating the company's time clock system in order to be awarded overtime. There's also been more than one occasion that word has gotten back to me that she has made comments about me or policies I've put in place that undermine my statements or goals. This manager has been here for several years, longer than I have, and has made some alliances with the right people, including a few in HR. I see her as a bad seed. How can I get others to see her true light without making myself appear petty? Signed, Clocked Off.
Got a saboteur. saboteur in our midst, folks.
All right.
Okay, so we'll go to break. When we come right back, I'll take it on. So stay tuned. Here's your coaching minute for the week, presented to you by the Leadership Foundry. So building credibility is essential to us as leaders, both in terms of working with our team, but also in terms of building credibility with others. One of the easy ways to do that is to focus on being more responsive. How responsive are you to emails, whether it's from your team or other leaders? That is as a good friend of mine and regular guest on my podcast, John Kim, says, responsiveness is cheap currency. And what John means by that is it's really easy to do, but it goes a long way. I had a leader I worked with several years ago, and he would typically respond to emails 4 to 6 weeks after they were sent, and he had no credibility with his team. So here's a challenge for you. Work on your responsiveness. Can you respond to emails within 24 to 48 hours? Now, what that doesn't mean is you have to respond with an answer. It can just simply mean, hey, I got it. I'll get back to you by whatever date. But by focusing on responsiveness, that can enhance your credibility. So give it a try. Welcome back. This is the Brandon Smith Show. And of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and we are taking on your questions today. So right before break, there was a question, Em, that you shared about this GM in a retail store. It's got a manager who's been around a little longer than they have and is undermining, sabotaging, doing some fishy things.
Yeah.
And so those things can be, there's suspicion by the GM that this person might be
literally stealing, perhaps.
Abusing the time clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think there's that. But this GM generally just doesn't trust this manager. Feels like they're undermining what they're saying.
Right.
And has made alliances with the right, quote unquote, right people. So This person doesn't feel like they have good leverage.
Right.
All right. So that whole adage, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, is how we want to approach this. So what you want to do is you're just trying to diffuse this person. And so I'd recommend that this GM find time to take this person out to lunch or coffee and just say, hey, you've been here a while. Would love to just spend a little more time talking with you and brainstorming on how we could work better together to kind of lead this store. So bring them closer, make them feel like an ally. It's going to be, you'll be able to get them more on your side. So then when you say something or give out a new message, you would have already run it by them. So there's a technique called pre-wiring. Pre-wiring is really important when you're dealing with politics in big companies. And pre-wiring is the fundamental idea and premise behind it is if you're going to try and influence and get an idea passed, you pick off kind of either key decision makers or vocal players prior and get time with them alone, share your idea and get them bought in. Okay. So then when you pitch it in the formal meeting, they're already on your side. You've already kind of gotten alliances. This person needs to be pre-wired.
Absolutely,
so they need to spend more extra time. So this person feels like they're special or they're being valued, then they'll be less likely to undermine. So that deals with the undermining issue. In terms of stealing and the time clock thing, you're just going to have to figure out a way to watch that. You have to figure out a way to monitor that. Don't know what that looks like. Maybe that means they need to change their hours. The GM needs to change their hours so they're around a little more often and they can see that and they can track it that way.
Got it.
Or maybe you put in security cameras or something else, or you frankly change how you are tracking time. That can be another way to approach it.
Right.
But I think those are two separate things. There's the stealing thing, but the more important issue because there's suspicion, but we don't have data or evidence around that, is my assumption. So you want to watch that, but I think the bigger issue is getting this person more aligned, so they're not. You're diffusing them from sabotaging.
Absolutely. And then hopefully you've gained them as an ally rather than.
Yeah, but to go back to the old adage, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. I think this is always going to be a frenemy. I don't think that you're ever going to have a bestie. You're just trying to prevent them from coming behind you and undercutting the work you're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I thought that was going to be an easier one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, and I will say what makes that hard is this person probably doesn't like that manager.
Right.
And I'm suggesting you take them out to lunch or coffee.
Well, nobody wants.
And you be nice to them.
Yeah, their first move to spend more time with the person who's talking bad about you.
But if you avoid them and you kind of are cold and cool when they're around, you're only adding more fuel to that fire.
Absolutely.
You're only going to get them to do more.
Yep.
Being cold and cool isn't going to make them all of a sudden like you and be nice to you. It's going to make them do more of that stuff.
Right.
So, okay, next one.
All right, dear workplace therapist. Last year, I was excited to be hired as a temp at a great company in a field that is new to me. I've done a good job of making some connections and hope to be interviewing for a permanent position sometime soon. In the meantime, I'm having some difficulty relating to the person assigned as my boss. He's actually located out of state and rarely gives feedback or provides direction or any communication at all. Because of his being in another place, it is difficult to demonstrate to him the efforts I have made or the things I've accomplished. It seems when we do have conversation, he is terse and condescending. I'd like to continue with this company, but perhaps not with this person as my boss, since dealing with him frankly leaves me with little confidence and feeling defeated, which I know bleeds into my home life. What would you suggest? Signed, Bossed by the Boss.
Okay. Well, it sounds like because this person is still auditioning for a role,
yes,
they need that boss to be a fan.
Right.
So while we may not like the judge that is evaluating our performance, we're still auditioning. So you're going to have to deal with the judge. So here's some ways to improve that relationship and improve trust.
Okay.
So one of the easiest things to do, and this is a great, easy thing to do whenever you start a new job. You pick a day. I recommend either Friday or Monday. And every week, once a week, send an email to that boss. And this is great. This person's virtual because this works even better in those situations. And just simple bullets, outline the stuff you've accomplished that week.
Okay.
And then the stuff that's on tap for the next week.
Okay.
It's a great way to show transparency as to what you're doing and to show what you're accomplishing.
Okay.
And it builds trust quickly. Because in absence of communication, people always assume the worst.
Right.
So if the boss isn't seeing you, they're like, well, sure, they're clearly not working hard. It's a great way to do that. So that's kind of a fundamental blocking and tackling thing. Oh, you lost your earbuds again.
Again. It's fine.
I was counting on how long. I was waiting to see how long that was going to go.
This one feels more firm. That one's so wiggly.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. We're rolling with it.
We are. So that will help a lot. The other thing to share in order to get feedback. So that's going to help you build trust by transparency. It's not going to give you feedback, but it's going to create trust through transparency.
And being proactive, yes?
Yeah, the feedback piece would, I think, it needs to start with first by asking expectation questions.
Okay.
So tell me about what success for me in this role would look like over the next 3 months. And I always make that a playful, fun question. So let's say I pull out my magic crystal ball, we look into it, it's 3 months from now, and you say to yourself, wow, this was a success. What would you see?
Okay.
What would lead you to believe that? So that's a great way to kind of gauge at what the expectations are. So at least you know what you should be shooting for. And then along the way, you can say, I just want to check in. I know we talked about success looking like this. Here's how I see myself progressing. Is there anything you'd like to see me either, we go back to the stop, start, continue. Anything I could start doing better, stop doing, or continue doing?
Okay. So, this woman or this person obviously feels intimidated by this boss. Condescending. It's hard to be playful with somebody you find condescending. So how does this person start?
I would still do everything I just said.
Okay.
Even if the person feels condescending, they'll still engage in that crystal ball question.
Okay.
It's their job. It's their boss. I mean, as the boss, as the manager, you're supposed to state expectations. That is your job. Mm-hmm. If you say, no, I'm not going to tell you, you have to guess, then you should be fired. You should be flat out fired. Okay. Because it's your job at minimum to state expectations.
Right.
Otherwise, why
be the boss?
Why even have someone sit in that seat? Mm-hmm. You could have nobody sit in that seat and not get expectations. So they should engage in that. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be warm and fuzzy. This person may just not like their style. Their style may be very cool and very direct. But that's just their style.
Okay.
So I would still, you're still ask the expectation questions. So we go back. There's three things. You want to ask the expectation questions. We want to make sure you're giving weekly visibility into what you're doing. And then at points along the way, kind of use the stop, start, continue to check in on what could I be doing more of or less of.
Okay.
And if you do those three things, that's hygiene 101 for your first 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
The boss can't come back and say, well, you didn't meet my expectations. And they could, but again, they wouldn't be doing their job because you said, hey, I asked what expectations were. I delivered on that. I gave you transparency, and I asked you, what could I stop, start, and continue doing? And you said nothing. So how can you come back now and say, I didn't meet your expectations? You had opportunity to tell me all along the way, and I asked. So if you do those hygiene pieces, it will likely ensure success. And then once you get the full-time offer, then we go to part 2, which is how do you get a new boss? How do you navigate and move around? But you need to get past the audition first before you start changing your role in the play.
Do we want to talk about how to get a new boss yet?
No.
We wait. Okay, that's the next show.
That's
You'll
the
have
next
to
show.
write in again, dear friend. Let us
right.
know how it goes.
Get past the audition first.
All right, once you get that job, we'll tell you how to get a new boss.
Yeah.
All right. That's
So
good.
do we have any more questions?
I do have one more if you want to take it.
Yeah, we got time.
All right.
Got time for one last one.
All right, you'll like this one because it proves that you have an audience. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dear Workplace Therapist, I was listening to your recent show and heard your suggestion during your coaching minute to review your LinkedIn profile at least every year to make sure the photo is up to date, the job title is accurate, etc. I'm having trouble with the job title portion because I have several jobs that I do that are not particularly related. I work as a paperwork assistant for a realtor, a PRN nurse at a rehab clinic, and the employee coordinator for my church's nursery. These jobs don't seem to go together in a cohesive way for an easy job description, and to be honest, I'm not sure which job I would want to focus on or grow in. Right now, working all three places gives me flexibility and income I need. Can you offer ideas for tweaks I should make? Signed, LinkedIn Editing.
Oh, so I have admission to make.
Okay.
I have not looked at my LinkedIn profile in over a year.
Wonk, wonk.
Isn't that horrible?
Yes.
It's horrible. I'm going to make some big changes here pretty soon.
Big
I am.
changes.
So I'm just
like what kind?
I'm just kind of waiting.
You're
Well,
gonna
when I get
dye
my
your
book
hair black?
done and no, no,
Good.
you liked that way too much.
No. It just seems to where everyone goes.
I was thinking about it the other day.
No.
I have had hair that has either been gray or white longer than I had hair that was dark.
I know. The gray hair was present before we even met, so cannot be blamed on me.
I know, got it in college. So that said, in your LinkedIn profile, underneath your name, you have the opportunity to kind of write a statement. And often people make that their job. It's like, I'm the CEO of XYZ company.
Right.
Or I'm a
Financial analyst
or I'm a real estate agent, or whatever
Right.
happens to be. Like you can put that in there. But what you can also do is make a more general statement about the kind of work you do.
Okay.
You could say, I'm a healthcare professional.
Okay.
You could make a more general statement, or you could say, an operationally minded leader that is a master in process improvement.
Okay.
Something like that. So I might encourage this person to think about if they had to write a one-line statement that captures the kind of work that they really like doing, the value they bring, put that there.
Right.
And then underneath LinkedIn, you'll have your 3 different jobs. You can put them in there if you want to.
Right.
Now, with communication, another kind of fundamental principle is we're either adding or we're diluting from the existing message. So adding more jobs is not necessarily better. You could end up diluting. Like if they're doing 3 or 4 or 5 jobs, and then all of a sudden, but they really want to emphasize one, if you're showing all of them in your LinkedIn profile, you may be confusing people.
Right.
So they might decide to exclude one of them, which is fine. It's not like a resume, and even resumes, you don't have to include everything you do.
Okay.
It's a marketing piece.
Right.
You're putting out to the world how you want to be seen as a professional.
Okay.
It's not a life history.
Right.
Or
So
an
this
autobiography.
person, this person, she's, paperwork assistant, PRN, and coordinator sounds like somebody who, deals with some organization.
Yeah, it sounds, I think organization skills first and foremost in that. But then there's also different worlds. I think we talked about healthcare, real estate was the other one, and then church.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got different worlds. So is there a world that you more gravitate to more than another? Is there kind of role that you gravitate to more than another? So think kind of like, what is that storyline?
Right.
And that's your one statement underneath your name.
Okay.
And then pick the jobs and emphasize
that story.
Yeah, to reinforce that statement.
Okay.
And I get that because, I wear lots of hats and I'll have different things on there. And back when I was teaching adjunct in different universities, I'd have those in there, plus, my firm or my practice, plus my blog and my podcast. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Right.
So it's figuring out how do you tell that story so it doesn't confuse people. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I got to go look at my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, so thank you for listening and watching. And stay tuned to us every Sunday as we air a new Brandon Smith show, and we think about ways to help you improve your workplace and your career and your life. Keep up the fight against dysfunction every week. And of course, check out my blog, The Workplace Therapist. And until our next show, have an awesome week and a great life.